But here in Washington, we have international team coverage at the White House on the contentious Canada visit. CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro and Jackson Proskow, Washington bureau chief from our partners at Canada's Global News. Let's start with Aaron there on the North Lawn. The president and prime minister praised each other, Aaron, but that didn't stop Trump from taking aim on trade. Let's take a listen.
We want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada. And we put tariffs on cars from Canada, and at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars.
So after this meeting today, Aaron, what is the state of tariffs between the two countries?
Yeah, Ed, good to be with you. It seems like the tariffs are still in flux, as Prime Minister Carney told reporters after that it was more so just a first step meeting as the U.S. and Canada are kind of introducing themselves with this new administration for President Trump and this new prime minister. And auto tariffs in particular, which we just heard President Trump talk about, Prime Minister Carney told reporters in a press conference that he reiterated his stance that he believes through supplying many of the auto parts used by American companies, that Canada is helping keeping American companies when it comes to autos competitive. Said they're still looking for an arrangement that works for both countries. And really, overall, just said that this was the first step, so that there would be further talks in person between the two North American leaders at the G7 summit in Alberta in mid-June.
It's funny because the president keeps saying, you know, Americans don't want to have to do business in Canada or don't want Canadian vehicles. There's so many industries in this country who either operate on both sides of the border or are so reliant on them. So for him to continue to say that just flies in the face of economic reality. I'm sure the prime minister was thinking that as well as he sat there. Now, once again, he brought up the idea of turning Canada into the 51st state, didn't he?
He did. And President Trump replied to Prime Minister Carney, firmly saying that that would never happen. President Trump responded, quote, "Never say never," a potential lyric reference to Canadian pop star Justin Bieber, of course. But President Trump afterwards only conveyed praise for Carney, said, when asked by reporters, when are you going to start calling him governor like you did with the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, President Trump said that he hasn't done that yet, doesn't expect to. And we heard the Prime Minister say in that press conference afterwards that he had asked President Trump to stop referring to Canada as the 51st state, saying it was, quote, not useful, though he did not share President Trump's response.
Well done there with the Justin Bieber reference. Aaron Navarro on the North Lawn. Thank you, sir. Let's turn to Jackson Proskow with our partners at Global News, also there just outside the White House, Washington bureau chief for Global News. I'm curious, the prime minister says he asked the president directly to stop suggesting Canada become the 51st state. I want to play this for people. Let's take a listen.
He's the president. He's his own person. I would go back to showing the difference between a wish and a reality. We're very clear. I've been very clear publicly, consistently. I've been very clear in private. I was clear again in the Oval Office. Would be clear throughout. The president, he understands that we're having a negotiation between sovereign nations.
I believe it was in French that he said that he essentially told the president all that talk about being a 51st state isn't useful anymore. Did he do enough today, the prime minister, to impress Canadians back home and assuage the concerns they've had about what the president's been saying?
I think so, Ed. I think the part of the story that's really been underappreciated in the U.S. and perhaps even inside the White House is just how angry Canadians are. And it's not about the tariffs. It's about the 51st state talk. I mean, that is something that Canadians take as an affront. Mark Carney essentially just won an election on running against Donald Trump, on standing up to President Trump, and on pushing back against that 51st state talk. And so what you saw today were pretty carefully choreographed speaking points from the prime minister in which he almost seemed to use Trump's own words against him. You played that tape of Carney saying, hey, I know real estate too, and I know that some things are not for sale. That's the type of scripted message, I think, that was going to land well with President Trump and make it clear that Carney was serious about this, putting his foot down. And you almost saw the president back off the talk ever so slightly and say, look, this is not an overnight thing. This is a long-term conversation. But he acknowledged it takes two to tango, in his words.
Yeah, it must have been a workshopped answer that clearly landed well because the president seemed to get the message there in that moment, at least. But the prime minister's been tough on the U.S. in the past, especially out on the campaign trail in recent weeks. He did bring some of that to the Oval Office today. Here's some of what he had to say.
Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over.
Having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
So going forward, what is the sense of how exactly the Prime Minister is going to navigate his relationship with the President?
Well, I think he's feeling good tonight. You know, not long ago, President Trump spoke and actually said he quite liked Mark Carney, and he thought that they got off to a really good start. I think you have to appreciate, and the president said this himself today, that a lot of the animosity that was there really had to do with the fact that he did not get along with Justin Trudeau, the former prime minister, nor did he get along with the former foreign affairs minister and deputy prime minister Chrystia Freeland, who was part of renegotiating the NAFTA talks. And Trump made that perfectly clear today. And by the end of the day, the fact that he is heaping praise on Mark Carney, even joking in the Oval Office that it was a tough but friendly conversation, wasn't going to be a blowout like he had with Volodymyr Zelensky, that is all positive if you're Mark Carney tonight. So I think he's going to head back to Canada and think that this was mission accomplished.
Yeah, on a scale of 0 to Zelensky, this was by no means that kind of a meeting, which is probably encouraging for both sides. Jackson Proskow, thank you for joining us there. Big night for you and the coverage back home in Canada. We appreciate you taking some time to talk to us.